Yeah. Hi, baby. Do you want to come say hi? I'm just telling them about the birth of your sister. Say hi. Say hi. Jude had his first haircut in a completely unrelated topic. Hello, my lovely people. The much anticipated birth vlog is here. Okay, the wait is over. I actually refilmed this because I did a little cheeky Q&A on Instagram and I realised that I hadn't answered half the questions that were on the Q&A, so I thought I'd combine it all and just do a big, long birth vlog / Q&A to answer all of your questions. And also, I filmed the other video like a week after birth, so, you know, I'd looked better, that's for sure. And also, I just feel like I missed out so much stuff, just probably because I was delirious, you know. So yeah, I am gonna get kick-started with the questions and answer those for you. I do go off on a tangent fairly often, so just bear with me. And then yeah, the birth vlog is later on in the video, so I hope you enjoy, and yeah, away we go. Away we go, let's get stuck into it. I'm actually going to start with the questions because I thought they were really interesting, and just want to talk about my experience of having basically a breech baby pretty much the entirety of my whole pregnancy, literally since my first scan. She was always head up and she never moved, and she still came out breech, didn't turn in labour either. So that was really interesting because I felt like I had completely different care to what I had with Jude. I don't know, I personally found the experience quite negative. Because I did feel like they kind of tried to steer you towards a certain direction, and obviously they were absolutely mortified that I wanted to plan for a home birth and have a breeched vaginal delivery at home. Like, I don't think I had anyone's support. I spoke to multiple consultants and they were all kind of saying absolutely not. So I found that really hard because in my heart of hearts, and it was something that I knew I could do at home, and that I kind of thought I'm better off and I'm more likely to have a more positive and better outcome if I'm at home, and my chances are higher of delivering vaginally and have minimal intervention if I'm at home. So that was kind of my standpoint. It's obviously my second baby, so I thought it's probably going to be quicker and easier than the first. And it was just something that I really wanted. I always wanted to do a home birth. Even I opted for a home birth for my first one, if you're new here. I opted for a home birth with Jude, and then I had high blood pressure, which, to be honest, looking back, I think I had high blood pressure because the midwife was literally telling me, like, I don't think you're in advanced labour. You know, I think this happens a lot with first-time mums. You know, they think that something's happening and it's not. And I just remember, because I was having 3 1-minute long contractions under 10 minutes with Jude, within like a couple of hours of my waters breaking. I knew it was happening. I was like killing it. I was like eyes closed, mooing like a cow. I was like really like focused, and I was focused on my breathing, and I felt like I was dealing with it really well. I just knew that things were picking up really, really quickly. So I was trying to tell her that kind of after my contractions, because I couldn't speak through my contractions, which to me is like a clear sign that someone's, you know, things are moving fairly quickly. But she was in my face asking me questions like mid-contraction. So, and how long are your contractions? And I was there like, ugh. And she's trying to tell me that it's not going to happen today, basically. So I actually think that's why I had high blood pressure, because she was getting in my face. Anyway, that's a story for another day. I was saying that I opted for a home birth. She told me I had high blood pressure, so she was like, I recommend you go into hospital. You know, could be preeclampsia, could be X, Y, and Z. You've got protein in your urine, you know, we really need to get you checked out. And then afterwards, I realised that my midwife friend and a lot of others have told me that when your waters break, you will always have protein in your urine, which I did not know. And secondly, I think I had high blood pressure because she was pissing me off. Okay, I'm gonna dive straight into the questions for home birth. Do you have access to any strong pain relief at a home birth? No, you don't. So you can have gas and air, and I'm pretty sure you can have, I'm gonna say it wrong, it's called like something begin with a P. I'm pretty sure you can take a tablet and they might be able to provide that for you in a home birth, but I think it depends on what borough and what hospitals and what home birth teams you have, so definitely check that out. I didn't have any pain relief this time round, which was actually really special, and I genuinely felt like it was less painful than my first. So with my first, I didn't have any pain relief either. I had a tiny bit of gas and air towards the end, but they actually ended up taking it off me because I was I wasn't really focusing on pushing because I was too focused on inhaling as much gas and air as physically, humanly possible. Next question. What gave you the confidence to have a home birth even though you were breech? So I think one of the main things why I felt confident in having a home birth for a breech delivery is that when you actually look into the research, it's really not that, it's not that much more dangerous than having a head down baby. And I think what I was really surprised at is that a lot of the consultants were kind of saying that they were kind of flagging all of these specific risks for breech babies and saying, for example, that I remember this one consultant was like 80% of breech vaginal deliveries, those babies require oxygen. He told me 80%, which is categorically not true. Obviously, this guy told me this in front of Mark and my mum, and they're obviously freaking out thinking, oh my God, this baby's gonna, this is terrible, this is a disaster, this is an accident waiting to happen. But then actually, when you speak to other people, other midwives especially, it's just not true. Like, I was just told that you wouldn't resuscitate a baby with oxygen anyway, you'd resuscitate them in air. And if you need to resuscitate the baby, you can do that at home as well. But obviously this is worst case scenario. Like, in my head, the information that the consultants were telling me, a lot of the time, I just didn't have much confidence in what they were saying. And actually, as I was kind of picking it apart and doing my own research, I was like, that's not true. That doesn't sound like it's true. That sounds ridiculous. Like, one guy was saying that, oh, well, if the leg comes down first and it's a footling breech, then, their leg could get caught and, God forbid that, its limb, so something happens to its limb. And I was just thinking, like, how many times has that actually happened? What's the actual probability of that happening? I'm not going to wait 2 days with its limb hanging out of my vagina, obviously. Like, I spoke to multiple midwives and they were like, one, I've never seen that. And two, that would only happen if, like, you left your baby's leg coming down the cervix and you left the leg there without doing anything for like a full day, which obviously nobody would do. A lot of these kind of hypothetical horrible things that could have happened to me seemed like highly unlikely. So I guess like what gave me the strength is doing my own research. That was a big thing, but also finding somebody who had experience with breech deliveries. Now, something that's really important to mention about breech births is that basically, long story short, there was a study done 20, 30 years ago that basically said and stated that you were at a higher risk of X, Y, and Z for breech deliveries, and there was a trial done, and essentially the trial was kind of a bit crap, and it was based on higher risk patients or something along those lines. You have to do the research, but essentially now it's been canned and like people don't cite that clinical trial anymore because it was so flawed. But the problem with that is that now loads of midwives and consultants have become, like, I don't want to use the word de-skilled, but they don't have the experience in breech vaginal deliveries because they would just be like, oh, that's a C-section, or oh, you got to be in hospital for that. But most of the time, most people are kind of swayed towards the C-section route, which to me is such a shame, because I think, from my understanding, the main risks of having a vaginal breech delivery is cord prolapse and placenta abruption something. So when the placenta basically detaches from the uterus wall and you get basically bleed a lot. The confidence for me was that, one, I think most people overlook this, but when you're in labour, the most important hormone is oxytocin. So for me, where am I going to be most happy? At home, in my own environment, with my own things, with food in the cupboards, with everything that I could possibly need, and not having that worry or that thought of, oh, how long are my contractions, because I need to know when I need to go into hospital. Oh, have you called the switchboard? Have you called triage? Have you called this? Oh, what about this? And oh, have you got this in the car? Like, I think people overlook how much being distracted in that way, it impacts you in labour. Of course it does. Like, it's slowing things down. It's drawing your attention from what's going on here to like other things, which to me, I knew that if I went into hospital, I would be more anxious. Can I get a private room? Not sure. Am I going to be shoved on the labour ward? Maybe. Am I going to be presented with a midwife or a consultant that hasn't really dealt with a breech vaginal delivery? Quite possibly. So that for me was like a scarier thought, because I thought, you know what, they're just going to basically sway me towards a C-section, and when I'm in labour I'm not going to have like the strength to be like, but why? And also I think in that panic, I think when you're in labour and you know you're in pain and all of those different things, I think you're very vulnerable to be swayed on decisions when you're in hospital and a doctor saying to you, oh, we should take you for a C-section. It sounds really fucking scary, especially when you're in labour and you're vulnerable and you're thinking, oh my god, like my baby, something might happen to my baby. But like, it's only when you kind of take a step back and you reflect on something and you're like, oh, actually, I don't think I wanted that, and actually, was there enough evidence for them to sway me towards that? I'm not sure. So I think that's something to also consider, that if you do want a hospital birth and you want to feel like your point of view and you feel like you've been seen and heard and all of these things, have a think about those things. Like, do you want vaginal examinations? A lot of people think that those are mandatory. They're not. Throughout my 2 births, I have had no vaginal examinations because I just think it's quite invasive. And for me, I just want to be in my zone, in my body, and it's just quite a personal thing. So unless it's literally really, really important and there's other signs that baby might be in distress or something bad is happening, I just feel like unless they're really, 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 it's necessary, I'd rather not. I've really kind of gone off on a tangent, but here we go. We're going to carry on with the questions. Did you still get the ring of fire with a breech birth? No, I didn't. So you don't get the ring of fire. And for those of you that maybe haven't given birth and are watching this as like a precursor of what birth might be like, so Jude was head down. When you push and you're not giving birth in water and you're crowning, so that's when their head is coming out, your vag, it feels like very warm. It's like a burning, and that's why people call it the ring of fire. And I didn't know what it meant, but I remember Jude's head crowning and me being like, what is that? And then the midwife was like, yeah, that's the ring of fire, you got to push through it. And you're like, oh my god, Lord help me. But yeah, so you don't get a ring of fire with a breech delivery. I didn't feel it anyway. You might do with other people, but normally it's because the head's obviously the biggest part of the body, so that burns. Did you tear? So I was expecting to tear second time around because I tore so badly with Jude. It was actually probably like the worst part of my recovery. Didn't tear, had a tiny little like graze, but nothing. No tears. Strolled back, I mean, I don't want to say strolled, but went straight into bed and was fantastic, and the healing process was so much easier this time around. I don't know what it was, I don't know if it was because I was used to it, I don't know why, but it was lovely. How did you persuade them to okay you having a home birth? So I guess like I should start by saying that I didn't have the right support with my local hospital because they weren't equipped with the right team to support a home birth, breech, vaginal delivery. Like, the home birth team actually said to me, they were like, we just would not recommend it because we don't have the team to support you, we have a young workforce. That was really, like, not disheartening, but I just felt really sad because, one, I completely understood where the hospital was coming from. Obviously, they are not going to feel comfortable sending someone to my house for a home birth who has never delivered a vaginal delivery, and obviously because I chose to go NHS, like, they can never guarantee who's going to be supporting my birth. So that was like a main concern for everybody. But yeah, I found it really difficult because I felt like my whole journey from 20 weeks was it was a lot of like negative noise. Oh, have you thought about this? Oh, but have you heard that the babies need to be resuscitated? Oh, but what if the cord prolapses and you don't have time to go into hospital? All of these things. And so I decided to get a private midwife, and you know, I basically decided that I needed to do this if I wanted to have a home birth because I couldn't go against the guidance of the hospital and opt for a home birth, and I felt like I couldn't put somebody in that position, like a midwife or, you know, a health professional in that position where they feel like, holy shit, I have to deliver this breech baby and I've never seen this before. And also it's not safe for me either. So, but I just wanted to make sure that I had the best team around me, and that if someone told me that I needed to go into hospital, it was going to be based on facts, and it was going to be based on my symptoms, and it was going to be based on, you know, knowledge, rather than like lack of experience, and rather than of them being scared. I just wanted to know that there was a midwife who I trusted, who had delivered loads of breech babies. So the only way that I could do that was to get a private midwife. So I went through the company called Private Midwives, and I got connected to this wonderful midwife called Heather. And I spoke with her once on the phone, and I said, I want to have a home birth. I'm 38 weeks, and no, I was 37 weeks, sorry, and I'm not getting the support that I need from the hospital because they don't feel like they have an experienced enough team or experienced enough midwife, and they've kind of all advised me against having a home birth with a breech baby. What do you think? And she was like, it's fine. She was like, you know, there's obviously things to look out for, but for me, she was kind of saying, if there's things that are going wrong, we know about it, and those things normally present themselves very early on. And she also said, like, she has been delivering babies since when she had to run to the telephone box. So that to me is, she was kind of saying to me, like, you deal with what's in front of you, and at the end of the day, if there was a red flag, I would absolutely send you into hospital. And she kind of told me a story about how she was supporting on a home birth, and she just said something didn't seem right, like it wasn't progressing as like a labour normally should. And you know, there were actually no signs, no raised high blood pressure. There wasn't, like, the baby, like the fetal heart rate was fine and all of this stuff. But she said something didn't sit right with me. I could tell something was off. And like I said, look, we have to go into hospital. I can't tell you 100% why, but we have to go into hospital. And yeah, there was something wrong. And she couldn't tell the mother in that instance what it was. But I think you kind of get that through the experience of knowing when something's off, knowing when something's not right. And she kind of went on her gut instinct. And for me, I knew that she wanted me to have a home birth as well. So, you know, if all of the boxes were ticked and everything else was all good, fetal heart rate, my blood pressure, all of that stuff, she kind of said, look, like, it does happen sometimes where you transfer into hospital, but I would only do it if I genuinely thought something was really wrong. So I was like, okay, great. I feel really confident in this lovely lady. Met her with Heather. You know, she has delivered babies that are like 12 pounds and with shoulder dystocia and haven't had time to get into hospital, all of this stuff. And obviously this was, you know, long time ago when they weren't 100% sure about like baby sizes and things like that. But it was really interesting because all of the questions that she was asking me for breech delivery were completely different to the questions that like the consultants in the hospital were asking me. And to me, consultants are like, you know, they are the top of their game in the labour ward, in, you know, giving epidurals. I mean, I'm sure they are like me with chopsticks with forceps, you know, like you wouldn't want anyone else dealing with those tools in that situation, because I imagine they are just completely incredibly talented at what they do. But my problem is they are used to and they are experienced in, you know, either high risk deliveries, not so much physiological births, vaginal births, and they see the worst of the worst. Like they see the stuff that, you know, we don't see and that I don't see, of like the worst case scenario. So I completely understand that they're going to have a completely different outlook and a completely different experience to vaginal births. And then my friend actually told me the other day that consultants only have to deliver vaginally, I think it's like 5 times in training before like they qualify, which to me is like so significantly low to be giving advice on vaginal deliveries, which is why I personally, to get advice on home birth, to get advice on vaginal deliveries, I prefer speaking to midwives, because that is their bread and butter. They pop out babies left, right and centre all day long. That is what they do. And so for me, because I wanted a physiological vaginal breech delivery, I need advice from a midwife who has got experience doing that. And Heather had delivered kind of over 50 breech babies. So I felt confident that she knew what she was doing. So a lot of the reason that people opt for getting a private midwife is because they are birthing out of guidelines. So this might be, like, for example, myself, I'm giving birth at home against guidelines because she's breech. Another example might be someone that's got diabetes would also be recommended to not give birth at home. Someone who's previously had a C-section might be recommended not to give birth at home. Someone who's had a 3rd-degree tear might be recommended not to give birth at home. X, Y, and Z. Anyway, so they're dealing with higher risk patients and candidates most of the time. And private midwives, their transfer rate is so low into hospital, bearing in mind that majority of their care is for people birthing out of guidelines, which the hospitals would deem high risk. Their transfer into hospital rate is like well under 15, it's under 15%. I'll put the link at the bottom and I'll put the website where you can have a look. But it's like the statistics are so strong for home birth. And that's amongst people having other complexities. Like I was very straightforward in terms of, I was low risk, had a vaginal delivery before and everything was pretty straightforward. So those are kind of things to look into. I think if, you are birthing out of guidelines, if you've got a breech delivery and you really want to have a vaginal delivery, then I would definitely explore the option of private midwives. They are expensive, but they're less expensive than going private. For me, NHS midwives are the G's, the goats. Like they are just the most incredible people ever. Delivering life into this world and actually being happy for every single neurotic pregnant lady that walks through those doors, because everyone knows you are not your best self during labour. You can become a little bit bossy, you can become a little bit hysterical, and they just nail it every single time. They're so supportive, they're so happy, like the joy in their face, I can't. So yeah, I would definitely look into them. But yeah, it's expensive, but especially private midwives, you can pay like £200 a month. Which I think is a great option, and I think it's really nice to feel like you can at least have the chance to have the birth that you want. So I would definitely check those out. Okay, how far away do you live from your nearest hospital? 30 minutes. So I was 30 minutes away from the hospital. For me, that wasn't that far away. Like, for me, I thought this is absolutely fine. Yeah, see, someone here has put, I'm desperate for a home birth, but I'm high risk. Any tips for how to get them to agree? You're not going to get your hospital care through the NHS to support you for you being high risk. No way having a home birth. It's not going to happen. Like I was low risk in all other categories, and just the breech baby was the only element that was kind of high risk, and they were like, absolutely not, wouldn't recommend. And do you know what? It was quite sad because everyone's terrified. People are scared in hospital. They're like, oh my God, no. Like something bad could happen. Absolutely, you have to weigh up the pros and cons. Absolutely, there are risks. Absolutely, there's risks to giving birth in general. Yes, decades ago, women used to die from childbirth, and I understand that there are risks. However, giving birth at home, you are more likely to have a better birth outcome. That is just the statistics. Like, that is factual. There are just so many things, and it really frustrates me because so many people think you are a nut job for wanting to give birth at home. But may I say, again, oxytocin is the most important hormone in childbirth. So let's just paint the scenario a second. So I'm either giving birth at home, in my own environment, with my own smells, with my own access to my fridge and food, and I can go into different rooms, like everything is familiar. I've got my partner, I've got, everything's familiar and it feels really nice. I can dim the lights, I can sit in the dark, I can crawl into bed and have a nap if I feel tired. I can go anywhere I want and it feels safe to me. And I think that's the main thing about giving yourself the best birth outcome, is what makes you feel safe. And to me, it's being at home, it's having my privacy, it's making sure that, I feel comfortable and safe and just relaxed. And all of those things I think are completely overlooked. And don't get me wrong, if you are anxious, if you are somebody who needs reassurance and you like a plan, and having a plan and knowing what to do and knowing that there's an emergency room round the corner in the other room, and that if you want, you can have an epidural if you need it, and you need that reassurance, go into hospital. That is the safest place for you. But for me, it wasn't, and I don't think it ever would be. Home would always be the best place for me to give birth. It's little things like the lights being dimmed. It's like having your bed sheets, having your own pillows, and just little things like that, they contribute so much to having like a smooth and like a better labour. Because yeah, I mean, the birth outcomes for home birth, shorter, quicker, less painful. And I have to say, I was in significantly less pain than I was the first time round, like with Miley. I don't know if it was a home birth. I'm pretty sure it was, because I took a nap. Okay, so I think another thing that I really want to be clear on is that I do not think I'm the fucking queen of birth, and that, oh, it's so magical all the time and, you know, I know best. I don't know best, but what I do know is that a lot of women bury their head in the sand and they just take all of the information that is just given to you face value and believe it to be true and right and the right thing for you. Nobody knows your body better than you. No one knows you better than you. And I genuinely feel like there are so many women that have really negative experiences and feel completely robbed of their like birth experiences because they didn't know the right information, weren't given the options that they wanted, and yeah, didn't feel like that, like they had anyone to advocate for them. So that really upsets me, and it genuinely, it does wind me up, because I'm like it's just, it can be the most traumatic thing that happens to a woman. Like, if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, if you don't know what you want out of your birth, and if you feel like you haven't got what you wanted from it, or you've had a really, really bad traumatic experience for whatever reason. And it could be that you feel like you didn't have consent. It could be that you feel like completely like something went in a direction that you didn't even consider could have happened. And a lot of the time it's because a lot of people don't do the research, and maybe they're not given the options that they want. But I am just pro-choice. I believe every single woman deserves to have a choice, unless it's an emergency. But up until that point, they deserve to have a choice of what they want out of their birth and how they want to birth. And, you know, it's such a big, it's like the biggest thing a woman will ever go through. So it can be whatever you make it. And like, just remember that it's your body, your rules. And at the end of the day, if you don't want vaginal examinations, you don't have to have them. If you don't want pain relief, then don't have pain relief. And if you want an epidural, go for an epidural. Like, I don't believe that there's a best way to birth, and there's like, oh, you know, vaginal births are the way forward for everybody, because they're not. To me, like, a C-section is so much scarier, and like, I would really struggle, I think, with a C-section. So that's just, again, it's such a personal thing. So that's why I want every woman to have the experience that they want. And to me, there are things that you can do to have better birth outcomes. Yes, there are always like horrible things that can happen to people, and it's just random and it's just unfair and like it's traumatic, and that will always be the case. But yeah, I just believe so heavily in like the strength of the human body, and I cannot tell you how, oh my God, I feel like so like proud of myself, and I feel so like, I feel like I could wrestle a grizzly bear because I've given birth, because I'm like, holy shit, like, it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, it's so hard. It's difficult, but it's like, to me, it's like a mental game. It's like mentally preparing. It's like anything big and monumental in your life that you would prep for, like a marathon, an Ironman, anything like that, you obviously put time into prepping. So I just think that that's such an important part of birth, which gets completely overlooked. Like, I don't ever remember like going into hospital and then being like, so have you practiced your breathing? So have you thought about visualization? All of these things that we know that top athletes do, and top athletes will, you know, they'll prepare for really big events. Like, why are we not taught more to prepare more for these events? Like, I would 100% be recommending hypnobirthing as like a minimum. And to be honest, like, I would say that that's just an integral part of birth. Like, you have to know how to like breathe properly. Otherwise, your brain is connecting pain to like panic, which obviously most of the time when you're in pain, you panic. But in this instance, like, it's so important to like calm your nervous system calm your nervous system down and just tell your body it's safe. Tell your body that it knows what it's doing. Tell your body, your baby knows what it's doing. You know, this is what your body's supposed to do. It knows what it's doing. Tell your body that you relinquish control and that, you know, you're ready when it's ready. And just all these things, like, you have that, every single woman has this amazing strength in their body. And I just find it so special. Like, the whole birthing experience, being pregnant, is so unbelievably special. It's like a once in a lifetime experience to, like, birth a baby. And yeah, like, it is just like the ultimate mental battle. And yeah, like, I just feel really proud of myself that I was able to kind of do it and not have pain relief. And I'd really, like, breathed her out, which was just so special. But yeah, it's incredible. I used a TENS machine, which I would also recommend if you're planning to not have, and you don't want to have pain medication. I would definitely get a TENS machine, and I would also get some, either like a wooden comb, which you can kind of hold in your fists, or like my doula actually got me these amazing, they kind of look like conkers, but they're obviously not as spiky, and you hold them in your fists, and it's just like a distraction for your brain. Like, I found those really helpful. Why am I out of focus? There we go. So I also had a doula, which I had a doula with my first birth with Jude, which, again, if you have the resources and you have the financial means to do that, I would highly recommend having a doula as well, because they are with you on the build up to giving birth, and they are the ones challenging you with these questions. So what do you want out of your birth? Like, have you thought about vaginal birth? What do you think about a C-section? And what if you were to give birth in hospital, what does that look like to you? How do you feel about pain relief? Like, how do you feel about this? And it's just someone to kind of prod that thinking of being like, oh, actually, I think I'd feel quite uncomfortable if I had vaginal examinations. Or, oh, actually, you know, no, I wouldn't want to be on the labour ward because I want to be able to move. And, oh, actually, do I want an epidural because that means that I won't be able to walk around? And I just, yeah, it's so weird, because to me, like, so much of birth is like instinct, and it's like, it's really like a primal experience. So to me, like, especially being at home, like, I went to sleep literally from like 6:30 until 11:30, and I gave birth to her at 2:30. So that's just like, it's just, yeah. But then even through like the last kind of bits of giving birth to her, my body's just telling me to like move around, and I have like urges to then like be on the floor and stand up and kind of squat and all of these things. Like, this is your body like telling you, oh, she needs a little bit of help maneuvering, why don't you go on your all fours? And like, it's just completely channeling into like what your body's telling you, and it's just a real like magical experience. Sorry, I've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent, but I really just wish that so many people weren't so terrified of giving birth. Like, to me, it's so sad, because I feel like so many women are presented and scaremongered into certain directions, and I don't know why that is, but it's like, I think let's give women the basics of like what is actually really helpful during birth, which is working on your breathing. Like, you know, we have a tendency to do this. Like, when you're in labour, you kind of have a tendency to be like, ugh, like, what is this going on? These contractions. And so, like, it's like actively knowing that, like, when you feel your body tensing, it's relaxing it. It's like, okay, right, I'm unclenching my hands, I'm putting my palms up, I'm doing my breathing. Like, this is literally what I was doing during birth. I was like, right, I'm releasing tension, I'm relaxing my shoulders, I'm breathing this baby out, my baby can do this, like, I can't wait to meet her, she's moving down my cervix, like, I relinquish control, like, all of these things, like, I'm affirming to my body the whole time, saying, like, I believe in my body, I believe in my baby, like, all of these really powerful affirmations. I just wish that so many women didn't have so many traumatic experiences. And I like, as soon as you have a lick of intervention, like, you're more likely to have more intervention. So, like, to me, like, inductions, like, I would avoid that like the plague. You know, to me, I'm like, it's this scary, because that is the unknown. That is an amount of oxytocin that is not made by your body, so it's not the right amount. So I think it either gives women like far too much pain, or it completely slows it down, or it doesn't work, and all of that is just so disheartening. Do I have any more questions? Yeah, a lot of people just saying, like, why did you choose to go against medical advice? I think for me it's about doing your own research. Do your own research, listen to other women, speak to loads of midwives, like speak to a lot of medical professionals. Like one of the consultants that I spoke to, he looked prepubescent, poor thing. I'm sure he's very experienced and very knowledgeable. But to me, I'm like I actually asked him, I said, how many breech vaginal deliveries have you seen? And he was like, maybe like 2. I'm like, so I should take your advice on my breech vaginal delivery based on the 2 that you've seen in your whole career? Like, to me, I'm like, I want to take my advice from someone who has seen 50. I want to take my advice from someone who, like, has done it in their sleep and, like, who just has a multitude of different experience with different problems in that area, which, like, he just didn't have. And I think another thing is asking questions. You can never ask your consultant or, like, the doctors too many questions. Like, that was the main question that I was asking all of the midwives and all of the consultants at the hospital. But how many breech deliveries have you done? And they were like, all of them. It was under 5. And one of them couldn't even give me an answer. It was like, I'm not sure. And I was thinking, you haven't even bloody done one. I was like, why am I going to take your advice? So I think that's another thing. It's like, to me, like, the advice was given to me based on fear and based on the unknown rather than actually the facts. So definitely do your research if you've got a breech baby, and just find one person that you really trust their opinion and, like, you have a bond with them, and you know that if they said to you, look, we do have to go transfer into hospital, that you would respect what they say and you'd know that it was, like, for the best of you and your baby, and it wouldn't be because of lack of experience or fear. Okie dokie. Right, now we've done, like, the Q&A part. I mean, I feel like I've kind of, like, gone into my actual birth story already just by answering, like, a lot of the questions. But I'm going to take you through bit by bit about my birth, how it all happened, and yeah. So here we go. So my waters broke again for the second time, and I think that was one of my main things going into the second time round, because my waters broke with Jude. I was like, what does it feel like to go into labour without your waters breaking? And before, with my first birth, my waters broke, and then literally within an hour, I was having, like, thick and fast contractions. So yeah, my waters broke at 5:30 a.m. Yeah. Hi, baby. Do you want to come say hi? I'm just telling them about the birth of your sister. Say hi. Say hi. Right, so let's talk about Miley's birth. Okay, so waters broke at 5:30. Okay, you don't care. Waters broke at 5:30, and so I was expecting big things. I was like, oh my gosh, I think my waters have broken. And Mark was like, you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, either that or I just wet myself again on the floor. So he went downstairs, made me some food, because, as you know, first thing to do when you body's going into labour is to eat as much food as possible, get protein, get your body fueled. So I was like, yeah, I need a protein shake and I need some eggs on toast and X, Y, and Z. Thank you, baby. And yeah, so he went downstairs, made me some food, made me all my favourite stuff, and then what happened? Nothing. Oh, I called the midwife and my doula literally maybe, oh, that's my other camera, darling. Can you not play with that? Can I have this? Thank you. So yeah, I called the doula and I called the midwife straight away and was like, it's happening, my waters have broken. And they were like, okay, great, like, we'll get on our way. Sorry about that, I was a little Judy Pops. Yeah, so waters broke 5:30, called the midwife, called the doula, yeah, it's happening. And because it happened so quickly last time, I was like, holy shit, it's imminent, it's just gonna pop out in a few hours. But then it got to like 6:30, they've turned up. I'm like, so, funny thing, not having any contractions. And they were like, okay. Well, I was, but like they were like one every like 30 minutes. So I was like, what's happening? I'm not used to this. So I was kind of freaking out, to be completely honest with you. And at about 6:30, I was in bed with Mark, the midwife and the doula are next door. I turned to Mark and I just started like crying. And I started like spiraling. I was like, I can't give birth at home. I can't do it. Like, I need to go into hospital. Like, I think that's probably the best idea. And Mark was like, what? Sorry? Like, what are you saying? And I was like, I just can't do it. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I just can't. And like, I was crying. I was getting really upset. And I was like, you don't even love me. I was like, what's happening? I was like, let's just go to hospital. And then he was like, baby, you're safe. I love you. Like, you're going to smash this. Like, you're giving birth at home. Baby's safe. We've got the best team. Like, just relax. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more reassurance than that. Like, is that it? And so he then was reading my affirmation cards to me about, like, saying, like, your body's safe, your baby knows what it's doing, like, just, and I just remember being like, listen, 10 out of 10 for effort, love you millions, but get the doula in here, like, get Em in here. I need something a little bit with extra layers in here, rather than, because, like, he was kind of half expecting me to read the affirmation card, so he was a bit like, and just trust your intuition and go with the flow, and each contraction is bringing you closer to your baby. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not really, like, no, I just need something a little bit more intense. So then I got Em, who is my doula. You can find her at the Mindful Birth Clinic. She is amazing. She does hypnobirthing courses as well. So if you're in the UK, just speak with her and her team. Like, she has the most amazing network of people. She also has an app which is full of free resources for anyone that needs extra support and that maybe can't afford to get a doula or like the private midwife or anything like that. She has amazing free resources, and also you can ask questions to one of the midwives called Sally, who is from Private Midwives as well. So I'm just plugging that just because it's such an amazing app, and really great for anyone who's prepping for birth and just wants a little bit of extra support and just to prep, really, has got loads of resources. Yeah, so Em kind of came in, she came and sat down on the bed, she held my hand and she gave me this beautiful kind of birth meditation thing where she was talking to me, my eyes were closed, and she was just giving me exactly what I needed. She just gave me that mental strength and just gave me that reassurance that I was safe, I was in my own environment, baby's safe, like, you've got the best team around you, like, you're so loved, like, your baby's loved, like, just think about, you're so close to meeting her. And it was just exactly what I needed there and then. So she finished this lovely birth meditation, which also she was just like freeballing, like spitballing, like it was just, you know, spontaneous, off the cuff. It was unreal. So that happened about 6:30, and then by 7 o'clock I was asleep because it kind of sent me into like a sleep, which was great. So yeah, I fell asleep from 7 o'clock, woke up at 11:30. So that kind of also gives you an indication that like my contractions just, I was sleeping through my contractions at this point, which is unusual. And then I woke up at 11:30 and I just remember being like, what is going on? Like, why are they like not, like the contractions not as intense? Like, is this going to be really slow? Like, what's happening? And I said to Mark, I was like, I feel really bad that I've got the doula here and the midwife here and like literally nothing's happening. Like, I thought the second was supposed to be quicker and all of this stuff. At 12 o'clock, I was like, I'm actually a little bit hungry, could do with a bit of fuel. So I said to Mark, I was like, can you grab me a banana and some jelly babies? So I started having a banana and some jelly babies. I like went to the bathroom. At 12 o'clock, I had my banana in the bathroom. I then was like, I fancy like I feel like I could like lie down for a bit. So we went into my birth room. So I created like my home birth room with like a little blow up mattress, my peanut balls put in between my legs. It had pictures of like Mark's mum in there, had pictures of like Mark and I and Jude in there, had loads of candles, fairy lights, and like all of these like gorgeous smells from like my favourite brands, like one in particular, Il Apothecary. I had like all of their room sprays, their candles. It was so beautiful and just tranquil. So like crawled onto the blow up bed, had Mark behind me. He was just hugging me and just like stroking my hair. This was probably about 12:30. And then I remember being like, oh, like, okay, something's happening, it's ramping up. And I just remember I was having contractions, but they weren't like really close together. I was having maybe one like quite painful contraction like every like 3-4 minutes. And again, I was just kind of breathing through it. I was using my little like balls to like just release tension. And then I kind of got up and I was like, okay, I need to move around. So I went back to the bathroom and like Mark had run the bath and I got in the bath And I was like, right, I'm going to just like relax and just chill and just sit in the bath, and, you know, it's going to happen today. And I just was thinking like, oh, it'll probably happen at like 6 p.m. As soon as I got in the bath, which again was like maybe like 1:45, and yeah, like 12:45, 1 o'clock at this point. As soon as I got in the bath, I had like 2 contractions that were quite close together, and I think I thought that getting in my own bath at home would be like really incredible and really relaxing, but because it had a hard floor, I could not get comfortable. So I'm there in the bath, like trying to like get comfortable, but then like trying to like not have another contraction, like in a really uncomfortable position. Then I was trying to lean over the edge like this, like over the edge, and I was like, this is really hard, I'm not comfortable. So I was getting really like irritable, and then I was like, fuck it, I was like, I'm getting out of the bath. And I just remember thinking in my head like, this bath's not comfortable, and I was getting really annoyed because I was like, I could feel things like picking up, and I really wanted to like relax into it and just like breathe out all of like the stress, but it was stressing me out so much that I was in this hard bath that was hurting my knees and hurting my arms and just wasn't comfortable at all. So again, side note, if you're thinking about having a home birth, don't think about crawling into your own bath. It's not fucking comfortable. Get a blow up one that's squidgy. And yeah, so that's maybe like 1 o'clock. And then I got out, and obviously I was like getting annoyed because I was like a little bit wet and sticky. Like I had my sports bra on and it was like damp, and then I was starting to get a bit cold, and I was like, oh, I'm getting cold now. And Mark was like, okay, I'm going to use t-shirts. And so Mark went and got me a t-shirt, put my t-shirt on, put my TENS machine back on. And then I had this like urge to like go on all fours. So I went on all fours, and I had this big like birth ball in front of me. So I was on the birth ball with my arms up like this on the birth ball, and my knees on the floor. And I was kind of rocking back and forward like this. And Mark was in front of me, and I was like, oh my God. Ooh, I was like breathing like this. Ooh. And then literally within 20 minutes, she arrived. Like I had maybe like 10 intense contractions where I was like, ooh, like breathing in a like a deep tone, and it was like intense, and I was like, okay, this hurts. And then I just suddenly had the urge to push, and I pushed once, and I felt her leg ping out. I felt a leg go bing out my vag, and I was like, I remember thinking like, I'm pretty sure this is like not what I think is supposed to be happening. Like I'm pretty sure, like, because actually what I forgot to mention is that when I got out the bath, Heather, like, she just like had a look, and she was like, oh, I think I can see like she's coming down like bum first. And I was like, great. And so I was thinking like her bum was going to come out first. She was going to kind of come out with like her knees like this. But then like as soon as like when I had the first push and I felt her foot ping out, I was like, is this dangerous now? So I remember being like, should I push again? And Heather was like, yeah, go for it. Push again. What comes out? The cord. The cord and the other foot. I was like, and the cord's prolapsed. So no, the cord actually didn't prolapse. I did kind of like debrief with Heather. I was like, is that the cord prolapsing or not? And she was like, no, it wasn't. It didn't prolapse. Like it was bouncy, and it was like, it wasn't flat. It was like full of blood, and it was fine. And then literally third push, and she flew out. Like she literally flew out. But what Heather did say is that my placenta had come away from the wall of my uterus, because she kind of came out, and then like loads of like blood came out on top of her. So she kind of had realised that like the placenta had also detached. But it goes to show like everything that they said was going to be a problem in terms of like the cord literally came out. Like it was the second thing to come out. I remember feeling the cord coming out and being like, this seems like it could be bad. But yeah, Heather was like, keep going, like just push again. And then she just came out the whole thing. Like she just flew out, like it was so quick. And yeah, she was born at like 2:30. And like I said, like my actual like intense active labour was probably only an hour and a half, 2 hours, which is so much quicker than Jude. And for Jude, I was actively pushing for maybe 3 hours, 2.5 hours, to the point where I was like, hurry up, Jude. But obviously I was exhausted after pushing for that long. But this was just such an incredible experience because it happened so quickly. I took a nap for half of the time. It was just the most beautiful, special experience. And yeah, she gave birth to on our bathroom floor on Jude's playmat, which we did clean up thoroughly. But yeah, everyone was asking me like, is it really, really messy? And I thought it was going to be messy because the last time, when I was in hospital and I was labouring, and this was kind of before active labour, like I was bleeding loads. Like I remember looking down at Mark's shoe and there were being like clumps of blood on it. And so that's kind of what I was expecting this time round when I was in labour. But because I didn't have any blood whatsoever, no bleeding, no nothing, the whole time I was in labour, or like the whole time, like since my water broke, nothing. No blood, no mucus, no nada. So this is another reason that I was like, oh, I think this could like take a while then, because I'm not seeing any signs. Whereas Heather, she was like, no, like I saw these muscles on the back of like, on the lower part of your back, they kind of went in a triangle, so I knew that she was kind of coming down and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Because also, this is another thing, because I was at home, most of the time when I was labouring and I was walking around, like it was just Mark and I. It was like so special. Like we were kind of like hugging, and you know, he was so phenomenal during the whole process. Like he was just like stroking my hair, getting me food, making sure I'm hydrated, and just, you know, just doing all the right things. And it genuinely felt like it was just Mark and I, which was really, really nice. And then it was only kind of towards the end, like I remember Mark telling me afterwards that like when I started like kind of like feeling like I needed to push and I had like a really painful contraction, there was actually no one in the bathroom. And Mark was like thinking in his head like, where is everybody? And that's obviously when they came in and they were like, oh, we kind of noticed that there was a change in you and your noises, so we came in. And just, yeah, it was all just so perfect. And I think that's like the beauty of a home birth, is that it really feels like such an intimate and like personal experience with your partner, because like they're just not too much in your space. Like you feel like you've got your own space and you can do what you need to do, and it's all very instinctual. And I was about to say feral, but I meant primal. Yeah, like it's all just like, you know, if you feel like you need to sway, then you sway, and you feel like you need to sit on the loo, then you sit on the loo. If you feel like, you know, you need to just like jump in the bath, it's all very like, you're just doing what instinctually feels right to do, which I loved. Because yeah, it was only really like the last bit that like Heather and Em were like really, really involved. And obviously Heather was checking me every 15 minutes. She was checking the fetal like heartbeat every 15 minutes anyway with the little sticky thing. But yeah, I wasn't like continuously monitored or anything like that. And all she kept saying to me, which was amazing, was just like, baby's happy, she's on her way, and you know, this is amazing. Like everything's as it's supposed to be. Like your body's doing an amazing job. Like you've got this. And I just felt so empowered on the day. It was a really, really special. So I feel so blessed. I feel so lucky to have been able to have Heather, my private midwife, who she gave me like the inner strength, and she gave me all of the reassurance I needed. And I just felt like she knew what she was doing, which just gave me so much strength. And that dog, shush! Filming! And also that my doula, who's, you know, she's been with me with my first birth and my second birth, and they were both very different births. But she was exactly what I needed her to be on the day, so calm. And like, I remember kind of a few times being like, why isn't it happening? Like, what's going on? Like, why is nothing moving? Like, why am I not having contractions? And she would kind of grab me and just be like, she's on her way. Like, just tell her that you're ready whenever she's ready. And that, you know, you're not in any rush. And that, you know, you're on her timeline, and just, you know, relinquish control. And just, she's coming, like she's on her way. Just tell her how much she's loved and how much you're looking forward to meeting her. All of those little things, like everything was just so calm, it was great. So that is my home birth story, and I hope you enjoy it. I realise I've gone off on a tangent like a million times throughout this whole video, but I wanted to combine the Q&A and also my birth story, just because I know that there's so many questions surrounding home birth, so many questions around the fact that she was breech, and I just wanted to cram it all in one video so that you guys have it. Also, you know, this is my experience. I am in no way giving medical advice. Like, please do your own research, but just remember that knowledge is power, and this is your body. And if you're preparing to give birth and, you know, you're watching this and thinking like, oh, like I'm nervous about this, like don't be nervous. You've got this. Like just just, you are the only person that knows like the best environment that you're going to be able to like thrive in. It might not be home birth, you might just want to have a C-section, like whatever it is, it's your choice. I'm so pro-choice, and that's all, and that's it. Like, just do what feels best for you, not what feels best for the people around you or like your hospital. Like, it's really going on like what you want, and advocate for yourself, and make sure to tell your birth partner what your birth preferences are, and that's really important so that they have the opportunity to advocate for you as well. And that'll be all today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna basically try and do more vlogs and videos on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, and if you have any questions, please post them below. And yeah, I just want to send so much love to any women that maybe didn't get the birth that they wanted and it was out of their hands, and please don't feel like you have had any less of a birth experience, because I just think any birth is hard, regardless of what that looks like. And yeah, sometimes it is completely out of our hands, and sometimes things happen, and the main thing is that your baby's safe and you're safe. So yeah, sending so much love, and yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening. And I have chewed your ear off for a long time, so yeah, sorry about that, and lots of love, and speak to you soon.